Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Schmoedown. I'm Star Wars competitor Andrew Dimalanta.
And I am Nicki Dimalanta.
And this is a very special episode, especially for me, because I'm just going to try my best not to geek out the whole time we're doing this episode, because we have a very special guest. We have a very special guest. He is the two-time singles champion, two-time and current reigning teams champion, the Outlaw, John Rocha.
Hell yeah.
Woohoo! Soundboards.
What's up, everyone? How's it going?
Yeah. Thanks for coming on with us, John. I know you've heard about our show and you said you wanted to be on, and immediately I was like typing in chat like,
Yes, please.
yes, please. So
Yeah, man. I mean, as soon as I like the way you approached me at the Orlando event, both of you, the way you both approached me, I was like crazy excited when afterward they told me that you guys have a show, and I was like, oh, I got to come on the show. Whatever it takes, I got to come on the show.
That's great.
And you guys know I rarely go on to these shows that often, and so like Schmoedown Rundown I'll do, of course, but all the other shows I don't go on that often.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see one that is good, then I find time for it. That's for sure.
Well, thank you again so much for having us on, or having you on. Sorry. Oh, I'm getting an echo.
Was that me?
Yeah, that might
There
be
we go.
you. Okay. All right. Still here?
Yeah.
We'll cut this out, or we'll keep it in just for communication. But yeah, big things happened in the Schmoedown, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on it, because biggest thing that happened the past 2 weeks was the draft, and we were both there live, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. We're gonna just talk about that briefly.
Sure.
So like all these managers coming in, drafting some really good teams. Who do you think out of all the factions had probably got the best like grade, if you would say?
I mean, like, apart from the obvious.
Apart from our obvious faction.
Apart from the Finstock exchange.
Yeah, who is one of the teams that you came out of the draft like, wow, okay, they got a pretty good team?
I'd have to say Koi's team is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a team that a lot of people are talking about already as one of the best teams ever, and so to me, that's where I go back to. For me, do you have the people in front of you?
like all the people on the teams?
Yeah.
Hell
You guys
yeah,
have
I
that in
do.
front.
Hell yeah, I do. Yeah, the Mouthy Mercs. They're looking pretty good. I mean, they got Bibbs, Meyer, Kanopik, Franco, Fouch, Alba, Scrimshaw, Humphrey.
Mm-hmm. And does
Look
anybody?
at that.
Yeah, does anybody on that team surprise you that they picked, or somebody that you were surprised went that late in the rounds?
Let me take a look here, because they already have I think they already have a Twitter account. These guys.
I think
A lot of them
I
do.
think most of the factions have their own accounts created by fans.
Right. But of course, Koi did it so that his face would be in front of the names. That's standard Koi. That is just standard Koi. And totally said with a lot of love, by the way.
Of
Yeah, of
course.
course.
I know what that's all about with him. Who did was it Kenneth Daisy who did all the graphics for that? Do you guys
Jacob
remember?
Patrick, I think
Jacob
is his name,
Patrick, yeah.
JP. Part of Call to Action, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's part of that. I think. Oh God, I'm gonna feel like an asshole if I'm wrong. Jacob did them.
No, I don't have. Let me bring them all up in front of me, because you guys surprised me. No, by the way, for people who are listening, they didn't tell me anything they were going to ask me.
I
Just
thought
brought me on here, and now I'm
That's-
scrambling to get.
That's the show. That's a very loose. Like I have an idea. It's like it's kind of like right now. It's like in between the season. We've already had a big discussion about the draft last week, and and it's like what we've talked about. Just like keeping it loose with the Outlaw. Let the Outlaw run free.
Yeah, man.
Let
Let him talk about whatever he wants to talk about.
I just want to look at what the results were, because I can't seem to find where that is at. And I had him up for, I think it was Kenneth Daisy or one of these guys had him. And then I can't remember where he. Oh no, JPDs. I'm sorry, it was Jacob Patrick. That's who did it.
PDs. That is right.
Jacob Patrick.
Yeah, he did a good
There-
job. And I don't know
He
if there's
really
any updated ones, because I know there's been some changes.
Yeah, because of Jenna Bush
Jenna Bush.
was drafted by.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I got him now. All right, let's
Yeah.
have a
Next.
conversation.
Yeah. So sorry.
Once
Should-
again, it surprised me. I had no idea. Look, here's the deal. Anybody that surprised you that they got? No, not really. I mean, Bibiani's obviously a great choice with Brendan Meyer. Team Shazam Mara is fantastic.
Mhm.
Obviously, she might immediately win a belt. Then you got Tim Franco. The only negative is Tim is in Arizona, so how many times can he really come up to compete? Depends on schedule and his job. Haley Fouch is like a diamond in the rough because she knows so much about movies. She writes about movies all the time. So but she gets rattled in live events. She gets rattled sometimes in these things. Will she keep it together? We'll see.
I think that comes with experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Greg Alba's an interesting choice. Scrimshaw's a great choice. Humphrey's a great choice. And he leaves 9 and 10 open. So,
that's interesting.
Right? At this point, they're open, right? So,
Yeah.
who could come back?
Yeah, and I think as coming from the Star Wars angle, being the Finstock Star Wars competitor as of right now, you might have something else to say about that. But seeing Scrimshaw being drafted that late, I think, is a very big surprise for me, at least, because he's somebody that's been proven himself in the division, and he talks about Star Wars regularly. So I was surprised that he was off of so many people's radar and just didn't come up in the conversation during the actual event.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, I think, because Scrimshaw has come so close but fallen short, you know? Yeah. You know what that's like, Andrew.
Yes, I know.
He hasn't been able to come over that hump, and I think that's what people want to see from Joseph. And Joseph is so busy all the time with all the stuff he's writing and shooting and performing that maybe people feel he wouldn't be 100% committed to doing it. Plus, he's a one-tool player, which means he's just a Star Wars player.
Yeah.
Nobody really sees him going into the main rounds or the IG rounds, so maybe that has something to do with it as well. But I tell you what, I may need to correct myself here. I think it is the Mouthy Mercs, to be honest with you. Because I look at everybody else, and it's like it starts out great, and then it's a lot of ifs, a lot of chances taken.
Rookies, and
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, out of all the factions, and of all the entire draft, what was your biggest surprise? Like, you're like, wow, that's a risky move. I didn't see that coming.
I think Robert Meyer Burnett taking James White in the second round. I mean, Robert Parker had gotten so much buzz ahead of time, and then, of course, Christian had posted about him in Movie Trivia's Facebook group. So I didn't find that to be as much of a surprise. Plus, the kid's got great personality. But James White was something that no one saw coming. But people are still questioning it. But Robert Meyer Burnett said, I got a hot tip. I studied this kid. I figured him out. And I thought he was worth taking in the second round. So to me, this makes it very, very interesting to see where James White and Robert Parker end up by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Do they both validate their surprising second round choices? We shall see.
Yeah, that's like there's a couple of rookies that went quickly, not like quickly, but like earlier on in the draft that I'm thinking like insider information, because Sean Sullivan to the Den was another one that I was like, what do they know on the? And that's something that if I get matched up against him, that's something that's going to be on my mind. Like, they must know something about this guy. Let
me give you a tip, Andrew Dimalanta. Let me give you a tip. The smartest way to play this game is to not give a crap about anybody else.
That is such an outlaw move. I love it.
and I learned this through my own mistakes and through the first 2 or 3 years of the game. I would be like, I'd get in my head going, it's their turn to win it. It's their time to do it. It's their, and that makes you not commit as strongly in certain moments when you need to rely on your own self-confidence and knowledge of the game.
And that's something that I'm looking forward to this season, because one of the things that I've found out of this draft that makes it so exciting coming from a competitor standpoint is my past 2 matches, I've only really had one person behind me, and that was my wife, Nicki. And my study, and it's just like I know, like 100%, she has my back. But going into with this season, knowing there's 9 other people that have my back and give me information, and that little nugget of wisdom that you just gave me, that's something that I am excited to know, to learn more about the game through like the 4 legends that we have on the Finstock Exchange, that I can learn from each and every one of you. So each of you can give something different to me as a competitor, and that's something that really excites me.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, to be honest with you, because I mean, Riley's going to give you that kind of jovial nature. Ben is more of the aggressor. The scientific, technical approach to the game. Dan is the stoic nature, and I am the emotion, and I am the
passion,
and the passion, right? And F everybody else. Like, that's kind of what I've learned, because honestly, I could have walked into that Schmoedown Spectacular and laid down and just given Viviani the belt and not been able to do it. But I said to myself when I got there, this is no one else's time but yours. And that's the way you have to approach it and the way you walk into the match, so that whatever storylines are there, they will be dependent on what you do, not what the other person does. And that's important to remember when you're in the trenches. Because I know when I lost that triple threat match to Viviani and Ethan, I went in there mentally like I'm not ready. They deserve they deserve their time in the sun. I've had my time. And as soon as you start talking about that, it's a way of kind of psyching yourself out for what you need to do when the stuff gets tight in the game.
Absolutely, that's great. And again, I'm so excited to learn from everybody. Just because I only have 2 belts under my not 2 belts, sorry, 2 matches under my to my name. So I'm still very new to the game. And I've been a fan so long, and I've tried to study as much as of the game as I possibly could from watching as long as I have. But experiences, you got to be in there, and I'm glad to be a part of this faction. And I just want to just shift gears and just focus 100% now on the Finstock exchange, and just how do you think we ended up like all the players that we had? It's a full roster. And
what do you think of not leaving any flex space, picking 10 people?
Well, that's now that I spend more time away from the situation and I hear Tom or Finstock or Dagnino talk about it. I mean, the fact that he didn't know what name he was going to say when he walked up there for the first round, and the fact that he didn't talk about us ahead of time, that makes me a little concerned about the amount of research he did to stack his team. That being said, though, the people he chose, I couldn't have a an issue with any of them. The Barbarian is an interesting choice. Emily Rose Jacobson is a great choice. I think I'm so surprised was sitting there in the 7th round. Gray Drake has been a fantastic competitor before. And the fact that she's aggressively wanting to know more excites me all the more about her. Sorry, Cody Hall has kind of surprised people. I mean, if people want to go back and watch that match against the Professor, Lon Harris, he gave the Professor everything he could handle. And by the way, that was almost a storyline that didn't work out because Cody was not supposed to win that match at all.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Right? It was supposed to be Cody losing that match, and then him, and I forget who else would be like the students of the Professor forming a semi-faction there. And Cody almost threw a monkey wrench into everything by winning that damn thing almost.
Yeah.
And then you look at Jackass or BC. I don't know what to take from BC, to be honest with you. BC's been around the game. He's at almost all the live events.
Yeah.
He certainly watched all the matches. So by osmosis, will he have a lot of knowledge, especially with the fact that we're repeating questions, or the possibility of repeating questions?
I think it's confirmed that they are repeating. Well, the possibility of repeating questions is confirmed. That
Yeah.
I mean, in a match.
Oh yeah. So it's not guaranteed. Yeah.
Questions will show up. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Especially with 27 new categories apparently in play.
Jesus.
And one of those being Tyler Perry movies.
I saw your reaction to that.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, I'm glad I don't compete in singles.
Right? So don't give me that IG shit. Like 20 categories? I mean, God, please. So, those kinds of things are where we're going to have to kind of figure it out as we go along. But, nothing says that we can't. I mean, after a few matches, we can't decide to drop some people or trade some people. All of that is in play, especially as all of us and that's the advantage that Finstock has, right? The 4 of us have played the game so much. We know it so well that we will be scouting other players on other teams that maybe aren't stepping up under that manager, and maybe we can sneak a trade out to bring an underperforming player to our team that will overperform once we get our hands on that player. So there's all kinds of things that can happen here that could be interesting as it goes along. But Finstock likes to use all his slots, so I'm not surprised that he went this route. And I like the combo. There are questions on the back end, but the potential for success is high.
Yes.
So that excites me on so many levels, because if all of them really dial in and focus and the breaks of the game fall their way, they could be in contention for belts at some point during the year.
Yeah. And Emily Rose Jacobson was one that I was like, wow, she's still around, and I'm glad we got her, because the great point that I think was brought up is her first match wasn't the greatest, But then you look at the difference between her first and her second match was like worlds apart. So I'm almost wondering like how is she going to go against Damon come February, because she's been studying, she's been working her game and tweaking it a bit. So I think I'm excited to see how she fares against Alex, who's kind of a wild card at this point, because we know exactly how dominant he is in Star Wars. It's just can he translate that to the IG? Because I just conversations with him online and on his streams and stuff. Like I know a couple of his strengths, but I don't know all of his strengths, because obviously it's Star Wars. I know he knows Indiana Jones pretty well, and I think he knows Lord of the Rings decently. But it's all the other categories. If you don't come to play on those, those can really sink you.
Yeah, Star Trek, DCU, DCEU, Marvel, MCU, there's all kinds of independent comic book films. All of it is in play and could be really dangerous for the wrong person who's not prepared.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because I'm kind of going around the back way, because I'm going to start studying as soon as I can play Oyama next.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What happens with the Oyama fight, whatever happens with the Oyama match, right afterwards is when I start to study for Star Wars, and that'll be.
So that's a serious. You're jumping into the division.
Oh yeah. I gotta see what I can do.
Yeah.
And you never know, because I'm the kind of person that if I start watching something, I can write down 5 million facts and I'll remember them all. I mean, that's how I got to college, for God's sake. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and study for 6 hours before the test. That's how I did it, and then regurgitated it all onto the page and went right out to the next thing. And so that's kind of how I'm built to focus on things, especially with the Schmoedown too. There's a lot of studying, and then I'll get up that morning and study. Like we studied all the way before we went on stage in Orlando. I just have that kind of thing where I like to be active,
Yeah,
mentally.
and one of the things that I will say about the Star Wars division, it's the biggest, it's the unique beast of the Schmoedown, in that you can't just watch the movies and like just keep writing down notes. You have to go outside of the movies and seek out answers. You know what I mean?
Oh, really?
You can't. What you can't do, like, and I can see somebody coming new into the division. Like, I know Star Wars. I've watched the movies. Right. It's not just that. You have to go beyond that and look at certain characters that show up, and like characters that are never their name is never mentioned in the movie, but somehow they have a name, a backstory, and a history, and you have to go and seek that out. And we've seen that several times in the division.
Really?
Yes, we've seen it several times.
Well, like one from your Chicago match that it wasn't explicitly said in the movie was
Cloud Riders.
Cloud Riders with Enfys Nest.
Yeah.
They never said Cloud Riders in the movie.
But they have this backstory with because Star Wars itself is this, like the franchise itself is this giant form of canon that doesn't exist in the movies. It's TV shows, it's books, it's comic books. So if it's a character that shows up in the movie and they have this extended story beyond the movie in books and comic books, they're fair game. And I've learned to not underestimate the game, because that's bitten me twice. Once while playing along, and once in my actual match that ended up costing me the entire thing. So so that was, we talked about this in Orlando. It's like, hey, I wrote it down and I threw the question out because I underestimated the game, saying they're not going to go this deep, and came back and bit me in the ass. And that's the one question that I officially missed in my fight with Laura Kelly.
Hey man, we'll get on Skype. We'll spar with you, okay?
I had no idea that it was beyond the movie.
Oh, it's the research is beyond the movies, but the question is contained within the movie, if that makes sense. So the answer the answer somehow leads back to the movies, but in order to know that answer, you got to go beyond your research has to go beyond that.
Interesting.
So that's the one thing that, because we've already, since my last match, we gave it like maybe 3 weeks of a break. And then we got right back into it. We started watching the movies. We started taking notes. We started researching, taking down notes and everything like that. So it's been a grind because the season is unique, that we're going to see so much more like cross-divisional play. And when the Finstock Exchange first contacted me, he's like, hey, we're interested in looking at you. They said, are you interested in going to IG this year? And I said, no, I can't. I have to focus 100% on Star Wars if I'm going to take down Damon. Next year, it's fair game. I'm actually thinking about jumping into IG next season, but not this season.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but I would love to see John Rocha across the desk from me during the Star Wars match. That would be awesome. That's
Well, Smet's already DM'd me on the download. He's like, I want to play you by July.
In Star Wars or in
Star Wars? Yeah, he wants to put his hat in the ring in Star Wars as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know where we're going to have enough questions. But then again, that book has 16,000 digital questions.
So many.
It's a lot. Like people think, yeah, we're gonna run. We've already run out of questions.
So much
There's
to ask.
so much to ask.
It's insane.
Yeah, we haven't scratched the surface really in difficult questions. I think because there's been. I'm sorry.
I didn't even the horns one. I didn't even think about how many horns of Darth Maul.
Yeah.
I didn't even think
about.
Yeah,
and that's the unique piece. You never think to why would
you know that?
Why would you want to know that?
It's true, but that's the nature of the division.
Yeah, so you have a big match coming up against Oyama.
Yeah.
But more recently, because we're recording this on the Friday night before the debut of season 7. And your partner, Merle, going up against Bibbs and the Kid. So
yes.
How do we see that shaking out?
Well, I mean, how do I not take Dan Merle? I mean, I think Dan's going to win this thing because I think, and I said this on SEN Live the other day, I was like, he's gone to the next level. And you ask yourself, is there a next level beyond Dan? And then Dan like finds this while he's with his pickaxe down there in the mine, he finds this extra level to go and find even more gold. And you're just like, holy crap. And I've watched him play, and that's part of why I was so super nervous in Orlando is I didn't want to let him down because he was playing on another level, and I wanted to get as close to that level as possible. And I achieved it in Orlando, and I achieved it in the LA match in the Spectacular. And so now I know that he is just like wants to go back and get that belt and be double belted, something he's never been in this game. And he's going up against the Kid, who I think the Kid is getting seasoned with all these matches. You know, sometimes the losses against the better players make you a better player. We've seen Kalinowski and both Ben Bateman get beat by better players and then come roaring back. And so those kinds of things may be in play for Meyer. Everyone says the Kid's coming. He is. But I still think he needs a little bit more seasoning, and this is a good test of his skills in a triple threat match, because a triple threat match is a whole nother animal than a single or a double team. You've got the spins are different, the logic is different, the strategy is different. Plus, there could be a moment like in the Ethan Irwin Bibiani triple threat match where Bibiani ran opponent's choice, and then Ethan and I got up there and we didn't know what to give him. And so that kind of stuff is where you've got to do all your research and all your preparation before you walk out there as a triple threat. And what if it's Dan and the Kid and Bibiani spins opponent's choice? What do Dan and the Kid give him? Does the Kid even participate to give him an opponent's choice? I don't know. What if it's the Kid who spins opponent's choice? Will Bibiani refuse to give him a category to knock him out, or will he confer with Dan and they'll come up with a category because Bibbs would know the Kid's weaknesses? So those are those things that could come into play that could fracture a tag team down the road. You don't know. And I think Dan, if he just plays this thing smart, stays chill and calm throughout, eventually the Kid and Bibiani will make a mistake and he'll win this thing.
So, yeah, like just playing with Dan Merle, like, did you feel that elevates your game at all, or if any? Because you've already been part of this, the Schmoedown for a very long time, and you've hit those peaks, but did you think that being partner of Dan Merle will bring you to another level at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing I've always said, and I say this with the utmost respect, the most frustrating part, look, being part of Top 10 was fantastic in terms of the game, right? We won the title, we beat the Schmoes, the unbeaten Schmoes, we beat them. We took that, we beat them again. And we just could never beat the Patriots, right? And to me, I felt it was because Matt wasn't 100% dialed into loving the game. and putting that extra time. Matt always said to me behind the scenes, like, I'm not getting paid for this. Why should I put the extra effort in? Why should I go? Which, of course, makes sense. You know, the way Matt works is Matt's not going to put in that extra effort unless he sees dollar signs at the end of the road. And I guarantee you, now that things are starting to build for the Schmoedown and where it's going, I guarantee you he's been talking to Christian all of a sudden all over again about coming back to the Schmoedown now that he sees dollar signs. But I felt that I had to be with somebody who was as passionate as I was about the game, or I was never going to get more belts or more titles or in that place where I could recapture a tag team belt. When Christian came to me about who do you want to be with, you know, I said to him, it's either Riley or Dan, because Riley and I have been friends for so long. It'd be great to go with him. With Dan, it was about the fact that I think we'd be unstoppable as a tag team, as a 1-2 punch. Playing with him has been so interesting on so many, because when we started out, you know, we kind of got those victories and we felt good about it. We stumbled against corruption initially, then we destroyed Double Toasted, and then corruption knocked us out again. And the first knockout was frustrating enough, obviously.
Yeah.
But the second knockout was just you know, so sound. It was such a sound defeat that I was rattled, and I thought, well, clearly I need to stop playing childish games in my head when I play with Dan. And the thing about Dan and I said this to him too, because during that second match, I felt like Dan didn't show up for me in the way I needed him to after I had a bad first round. Like if you watch the Shire Wolves match against Odd Couple, Clark had a bad in the rematch. Clark had a bad first round, but Rachel bucked her up and carried her. And Rachel was like in her ear and pushing her. And I think Dan was so flustered by the fact that we were behind going into the second round that he was trying to be supportive, but he didn't know how, because he was caught up in being worried that we were going to lose it. And so when that match ended up falling apart, and by the way, I got 4 out of the 6 romance questions to keep us in play, and then stumbled on that. I mean, in the Navy one, the Officer and a Gentleman, how do we not have a discussion? Mara is in the Navy. So it was like that kind of thing, like, why don't we, you know? So when it was over and we had a little bit of time away from it, I said to Dan, I was like, if I stumble, I need you to be there. And I will be there for you 1,000% when you stumble. I will pick you up. I will fight with you. But I need you to, if I go into one of my places, I need you to climb out of your place and yank me out of that place. And I promise I will carry you across the finish line for the rest of the match. And when I showed up at Orlando, I was nervous. I was scared. I was like, oh my God, is it going to happen again? Did I lose 3 times to a heel team for the belts and I can't beat this team? And when I walked into the room, Dan was so goddamn laser focused that it put me in the right mindset sitting across from him. We hugged. Then he sat down with Mara and went right back to his paper. And I went right onto my iPad and my 680 questions that I have, and was just like steaming through it. And he was doing what he was doing. And so it just kind of calmed me down into the right place. And my nerves were there, but my focus was there as well. So when you play with Dan Murrell, that's the thing is I think I'm one of the few people who can call Dan out, and Dan will listen, and Dan will hear me. And so when we were doing that game down there in Orlando, if you watch the video, I am staring at the back of that theater because I am so in a place of like, they are not going to beat us. There is no effing way. And when we got to the 5th round, right before the 5th round, I know I've said this before, but I want to reiterate the point. Dan leans over to me and goes, if they don't answer their questions, we answer them, we win this. And I said, Dan, it ain't over, man. Yeah. Focus. Yeah. I'm saying to the GOAT, the greatest of all time, it ain't focus up. You still got one round, but that's the kind of balls that he gave me because of how focused he was in the room. So I came out there hyped. I'd had a little bit of Red Bull. I was hyped. I was ready to go.
You could see it all over your face because we were there live. And I'm like, God, Rocha looks laser focused right now.
Absolutely. Both of them. Both of you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dan is and that's why playing with him is like such a joy and spectacular. The same thing. Dan was like, I fucking hate you for being here because you're sick. You shouldn't be here fighting for this.
Yeah.
And I'm dealing with the death of my grandmother. Like, we shouldn't be here, but if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's fight till the end. And if we lose, we lose, but let's go out on our shields. And that's what I've been waiting for a tag team partner. Because let me tell you something about John Rocha. Let me tell you something about the album.
Please.
There he is.
I am not going to give 100% for somebody who isn't going to give 100% with me. And I am not going to give the best of what I got unless the person next to me is willing to do that as well. Because if they're not, why the hell am I doing it?
Yeah.
And so that was always the problem with Nost and I on the top 10 sometimes in the tough matches, is I felt like either I drifted off and Matt couldn't pull me back, or Matt drifted off and I couldn't pull him back. And we couldn't stay focused. When Dan and we figured that out, and so that's been the thing for me, is finally because there's maybe 5 players that I would ever play with that I would 100% give 100% during a match with. And there are not that many other players that I would do that for. Rachel is one of them, 1,000%. Riley's another one. Clark Wolf would be one if I was able to get in a match with her. And then maybe there's not much else. I mean, obviously Dan, but I don't know if there's anybody else that I would. Oh, maybe Kalinowski. Certainly Kalinowski.
That would be interesting. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So if you weren't partnered with Dan, like you just rattled off a whole bunch of names, like who is like your next in line that you're like, all right, Dan can't go.
Retired or not,
who would you want to have as your teammate?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's a great question. Damn. It's tough because there's so many things you have to factor into it. And Rachel is obviously someone that comes to mind, but then Rachel really hates live events. She has to really kind of go into these mental places about live events. And I don't need that extra pressure on me. Clark and I could be dangerous because we could implode upon each other. And that could be because we're both so similar in how we play the game, no prisoners. That could blow up in our faces. I think Kalinowski is the one I come back to, and Ben more so than ever. I think after that time I went to his house for like 3 hours and helped him with his back surgery. After his back surgery, I kind of saw another side of Ben that I hadn't seen before, and that kind of made me excited to play with him if I ever get paired with him. But I'd love to make a run with Kalinowski. I'd love to go heel, and Kalinowski and I just fucking eviscerate the league.
That would be great to see.
I mean, imagine me, Kalinowski, and Shannon Barney on the mics.
Oh my God, that would be the best.
Shannon is heel of the year. I'm calling it right now. She's gunning for it. Like just
hard.
Yeah. I don't think anybody else has come close to being heel of the year besides Shannon.
This season hasn't even started yet.
Right? That's a fair point. I think so too. I think those videos have been just brilliant. So once again, it's like, and someone laid this out to me the other day. They were like, when I was, playfully complaining about Andrew being considered the best heel, I just was like, you guys don't remember. But someone said, well, Andrew took what you did and went to the next level. And that gave me pause because I'm seeing what Shannon is doing, which is what she took, what I did, what Kalinowski did, what Andrew did. And now she's taking it to the next level. And you're just like, holy shit, man, this is brilliant. None of us thought to do like those extra videos that she's doing. Speaking to the fans the way she does. Obviously, Kalinowski said but she dials in fully and personally. Like, it's personal. It's like, whoa,
And we spoke to her after the Orlando event, and we're like, you thinking of managing? She's like, no.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, here she is now, like managing corruption.
Yeah, and she is like so ready to do it finally. Because I think what Mike told me earlier was he was trying to keep her at bay because he wasn't sure how she would do this. Because I mean, I don't think I'm going to say anything wrong here. Shannon can get in the streets. Shannon can go right into the streets, no problem. And I don't think a lot of the nerdy film people are used to being dragged out into the streets, and so she has a massive advantage in that way. Like I went toe to toe with her, and I was like, okay, I can't do it. I can't do it. Because we were like, we would edge over that line of personal, and
yeah.
it would get a little too hairy on my end. So
Yeah. So obviously the draft they're calling season 7 the new era. You've been a part of the Schmoedown for probably one of the longest out of anybody.
Riley the most.
Yeah.
Obviously Christian Martellus, but Riley the longest. But I think I've been in the league consistently longer than any.
You came in. I can't remember. Was it season 2 or were you there for the first season?
Season 2, yeah. I came in season 2, I believe, when we were doing it at the old place, and then when we moved to the smaller studios at AfterBuzz, we were doing the tag team tournament there. Me and Nost.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you've been in it for just as long as anybody, and again, this is the new era. Like, how do you see the draft like changing the Schmoedown? Because we've already seen it on social. We've seen it with our faction. We're all in a big DM together. The shit talk is amazing online between faction mates or in between teams. Like, how do you see this evolving the Schmoedown?
Well, I think it all depends on. I think it will evolve the Schmoedown in this way. I think there's going to be more drama than ever before.
Oh yeah.
I think there's going to be more fights during matches than ever before. I think once you dangle that carrot of money, that's a possibility here at the end of the year. I think everybody brings a whole nother approach to it, right? When you play fantasy football or fantasy basketball, when you're playing for fun, you're not as motivated. You have fun, and if you win, great. But when there's money involved, then there's all kinds of like, oh, he did this or she did that, or on purpose. That was on purpose. And so there's more accusations. There's more thinking the worst of people. There's more questions about yourself. Things of that nature will come into play. That being said, I think the idea of the managers being the only people that can communicate with the commissioner and with Christian is a stark change from years before. So that will alleviate some pressure off Christian, but it'll also put a lot of pressure on the managers to manage their players. And I think that's going to add a whole other element to it. We could see a blow up between player and manager during a match, between the breaks in the rounds. Like, you told me to pick this category. Why did I pick this why did you tell me to pick this category? Or why didn't you calm me down? Or why did you give me those stupid numbers or anything like that? All of that is a possibility at some point this year. And the flip side is that if the manager understands how to manage their players, that is the person that could win this whole thing. Because that's what you got to learn on the fly. And the people who are more adept at doing it will be the most successful managers of the year. And we'll see. I mean, Tom failed his first test at the draft, that's for sure.
That's for damn sure.
We'll see what he does going forward. Because, I think Tom wasn't the best for me in the Manager Bowl, but he was at the tail end of the year in those tag team matches. He was great for Dan and I. So those are those things that you learn as you go along.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to because, again, my very small little experience that I have with this run of 2 matches, like the only manager that I've ever known was my wife. Helping me study, and you can see her coaching me through, like silently through between rounds. Because that stupid little flub I had with 725 to 1, you could see me look to the side, and you can see it in my debut too. As she's off camera going, "Calm down, it's okay. It's just one question. Move along." And so that's the only management that I've ever known. I'm very curious to see have an actual manager like officially be in my corner and
somebody who knows what they're doing.
Because I just want to know that experience, and like, can you like sort of like talk us through like how that helps your game out, and what is it like to play with an actual person like a manager in your corner?
But don't give away any Finstock Exchange secrets.
Well, I think the thing with what a manager does is, if you've got the right manager, you can be honest with that manager in the moments that are tough for you, or you're most vulnerable, or you're questioning yourself. And if the manager understands how to handle you in that moment, it can make the difference between you winning or losing. I think with Tom has a way of just coming in and being simple about it. He's just like,
It's definitely simple.
Simple Tom.
I don't mean dumb. I mean that.
Yeah, we don't either.
Yeah, he's like, well, this is what you need. This is what you do, and this is what. And this is what we. I mean, if you want to go that route, I understand, but like this, and this, and so.
Can I? I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but can I say, like, anybody that does an impression of Tom Dagnino is always spot
so
on.
Accurate. It's so good.
And he does it, and with us, it was like I can't remember. It was in Spectacular that we spun something, and then we spun again. And it was because Tom had said, "Well, look at the other stuff on the board." Oh no, it was a Spectacular because he said, "Look at what else is left on the board. Is there anything that you're afraid of?" And then at that point, we were like, "Yeah, let's just go with what we got." And we roll, and we stayed with the sci-fi,
That's great.
with the fantasy sci-fi. And I was nervous because I'm not the best on sci-fi, or fantasy. So I thought we were in a little bit of trouble, and we were so lucky to get out of it and do well. But those are those things that the manager can remind you of. You may not need the manager to say that stuff because you're already thinking it, but hearing someone else say it sometimes can kind of take you out of yourself.
Like a second opinion just to confirm what you're thinking.
Right. And I think that's where the Bibbiani match, I think Tom also kind of wasn't as strong for me in the Bibbiani match. Tom should have come in knowing what categories to give Bibbs to unsettle him and or to quite make him quiet. And so those are the things that I want to see from Tom this year. We won those belts under Tom's management. Now let's see what Tom can do match to match for all of us. And is he going to put in the work and the research and the study to know what our opposing players' weaknesses are? And so that's going to be important in a certain moment, in a certain time. When they start to get flustered, is Tom going to be able to come in and say, "You see them? They're stuttering. They're stumbling over themselves. You got them. Just stay still, stay calm. You got them." Those are those little things that I think will come into play as it goes along. But Tom has a way of just of reducing the game to very simple things. And when all of us who overthink these things as we're playing them get confronted with that, I think it can be a positive experience because you have someone who's just stripping all the thoughts away to the most basic thing and the higher percentage thing to do in that moment. And so that bears fruit.
Yeah. I'm excited to experience that and I'm curious to see how Tom's gonna be able to manage more than just 4 people because that is a tall task, and not just like 10 people, but 10 vastly different personalities because
different knowledge banks. Too.
Yeah, exactly. So
that's why I'm interested to see what Kate and Winston bring to the table as new managers, and Coy hasn't managed before.
He's managed one team before.
Oh yes, he managed oh wait, I know this. Is that the name of the team?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he was doing the Jeff Goldblum thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, when we beat them, yes.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That was your first match.
Yeah, that was our first match, and it was at a live event.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Dan and I are pretty unbeaten. We are unbeaten at live events. I mean, I don't count the free for all because that's like everybody's in that.
Yeah.
And that Dan has won. So all of combined, Dan and I are unbeaten in live events.
That's a hell of a record. And speaking of records, you've been at this a long time, and I remember watching you on Take 3 and saying that you're close to hanging up the hat and calling it quits. But then
please don't.
But please don't. And and Christian comes back to you. He's like, "What about that Patriots run? Is that the thing that's keeping you into the Schmoedown, or you feel like you want?" Especially with the new venture of Star Wars division, is that something that you're I'm going to start branching off of different things? That's what's going to keep you in competition with the Schmoedown?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting time, I guess I would say, because yes, I was very, very close to retirement. And this is no lie. If I had lost in Orlando, I was going to retire on the stage.
That's what we were afraid of.
I really was. And I knew it, and I had lied to Christian, because he had said, well, if you lose, say you're leaving, and fool everybody into thinking that you're actually leaving the game, but actually what you're doing is leaving the Horsemen and then turn heel. Ooh. That's what the original plan was. Is I was going to say I should step down, I don't think I can do this anymore. I've tried my best, but I just don't think I belong in the Horsemen anymore. Because I'm tired of carrying this team, and I've been doing this so goddamn well. So that was basically how it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to go like they're all weighing me down, and I can't keep carrying 4 other people and myself. That was basically how it was going to be. But I was really going to say I'm stepping down and I'm retiring, and I really and I know Chris
wow.
probably would have been pissed, but that was my plan because it had taken so much out of me last year because doing the Collider stuff, doing all the podcasts I'm doing, and then still studying. Like that's the thing. People who are unemployed have way more time
Yep.
to study for
Yeah.
these matches, or people who have like husbands who make all this money, or maybe their wives make all this money, and so they're able to take extra time to study. It's tough to go against those people because you're like, I have studied as much as I can, but I've got all this other stuff going on in my life,
Oh,
but
yeah.
so to me, the change that has happened since then has been one of peacefulness in the game, and regardless of my flipping out after the draft, which by the way was, I think, to be honest with you, this first time I'm saying this publicly, I think it was part of the Collider thing too. I felt so kind of dismissed by Collider and disrespected by how it all went down.
Of course.
To have Tom do it like I just was so upset about all of that, and it was just kind of tied into that, and so but I'm in an interestingly new place now walking into the season. To be honest with you, this is the scariest season I think yet, because so many different people are involved. And so many people are now like focusing up and training and studying. It's like everyone has become these fight clubs, which is what Emma kind of pioneered with her stable, this idea of everybody getting together to study,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I kind of pioneered studying at the level that I did it when I was going through my year towards the title. But what she did was, once again, take it to the next level where everybody was studying with each other and there were no egos or fear that the other person was going to beat the other person. There was more respect about that happening in a match if they were part of the same fight club, than division. And so what I see now is that's what's happening with everybody else in their proper stables going into season 7. Everyone has become these mini fight clubs where they're all training each other. And so if they lose to each other in a match, it's not a negative. It's kind of seen as a badge of honor for that stable, that these 2 fought a titanic match, or these 4 fought a titanic match, and whoever came out on top came out on top. But they all helped each other study and helped each other prep for the match, and that's a positive overall. It could lead to some very, very exciting matches down the road, but also we have no idea who's going to pop up and be the runaway success.
Yeah.
Well, and also, if you got people, whenever drops and trades start happening, then that's when the drama's going to set in, because it's going to be like, well, I know the secret that they do when they study, and this is what they do in their study sessions, and this is what we talked about in our group chat.
Excellent point, because NFL playoff teams do that all the time.
That's how the Bucs won the Super Bowl, man.
Yeah. NFL teams pick up players that have been cast off from other teams that they're about to play, so they can get the playbook or get plays that the coaches have a tendency to call in certain situations. And that's a brilliant thing that could happen in the Schmoedown if people get traded later on in the year.
Do we know of any kind of like limit to trades, or is there like a cool down period, or if you just drop somebody, you got to wait so long?
Is there a waiver wire at all?
Yeah, I wonder what the limitations are.
I'm asking about that, if there's a trade deadline like around June maybe, because it's halfway through the year.
True.
The other possibility, the other thing that they said was if you create a tag team within your faction and they lose 2 matches, you can switch around players.
Oh.
And that's an interesting thing, because I brought this up on Schmoedown Backstage, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, and I said, if there's no limits on when you can switch the player on a team, you could surprise people and schedule a match for this 0-2 team of yours and then right before the match is about to start, replace one of the players on the team with another player to shock that team that they're about to play. Because that's what it happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the way that this has got shaped out, like this is the 7th season of the Schmoedown. Did you ever see this friends getting together to discuss movie trivia? Did you ever see it getting to this level to where we're drafting people?
No, I'll be honest with you, no. And not because I didn't see the growth potential of the Schmoedown, obviously. I mean, I remember season 4, season 5 were getting 300,000 views a match because we were bringing that kind of like drama and tension to the matches. And the people were so well known in the film community. So people who were fans of them and their reviews and seeing them were like wanting to see them to see how they could do in these matches. So for us, it was about friendship, but also friendly competition and ego. A lot of it was ego too. So, but what's changed is the last 2 or 3 years, the last 2 years, I guess, the players that have come in approach it from a analytical point of view, and from a more colder scientific point of view. And I have found that to be a very interesting change in the game. And what's fascinating is that that's what makes any league or any program, any TV show, right, more interesting is if every season there's a change in the approach. There's a change in how this goes down. So Christian has always tried to be one step ahead. Like in the middle of a year that's currently happening, he is already thinking about next year. He's already thinking about 2 years down the road. I heard about the draft in like March of last year.
Wow.
March, yeah, April, March, or May of last year. He was already, or April, he's already kicking it around in his head. I mean, I heard about anarchy months before it happened. Because these are things that, and Crystal told me about 7 different things that will never come true, but he's always kicking around possibilities of how to take the game to a whole nother level every season, right? And trust me, probably in March or April, he'll just pull me aside and go, Rocha, what do you think about this? And I'll be like, oh, fuck, here we go. Let's see what this is going to be, And
what was your initial reaction to like, hey, I'm thinking about doing a draft of players? What was your initial reaction?
Are there enough players for us to do a draft?
Yeah,
that's what I thought initially. But clearly there were a lot of players that weren't drafted that are still sitting on the sideline. That was a bit of a shock for me, like Molly Damon, late to the party.
Yeah.
Like, were surprising. I would have taken Molly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, she's better than because we talked to her after Chicago, and she's like, I don't think I'm ready for this. I'm just gonna sit back and let Alex do his thing. And I'm like, she's way better than she thinks she is. I just think she just let the moment get to her, and she just the lot just.
It's hard to debut live too.
Yeah, it was just she's too hard on herself.
Yeah, I would love to get my hands on Molly in the Finstock exchange because I think we could get Molly like totally focused up and like prepared for the match. Obviously, Andrew, you're our Star Wars player, but if we had gotten Molly, I think we would have been an interesting thing to have her in there as well to see what we could bring out in Molly. Yeah. And maybe even get her a little devious to get under Alex's skin before a match. Yeah. I mean, no one knows you better than your significant other.
Oh yeah,
and exactly what to bring up to rattle you. So that could have been something we put in her head that she could have pulled out at a certain moment.
And I'm curious. I'm curious just for my own not my own ego, but like. Did Tom like discuss this with you, like who he was thinking about getting in Star Wars? Because I got a message from, I'm not gonna say who I got it from, but I got a message from the exchange saying we're interested in looking at you. Did you guys discuss this at all?
No, but I know Ben and Tom. I know Ben was very focused on discussing it. Talked to a lot of people, called people. I mean, Greg Alba told me that Ben called him.
Wow.
And was talking to him about how focused he is about being in the league. So. There was a lot of that going around through Ben's side. So you don't have to say Ben, but I know it was Ben. And I know he was doing, and he almost got in trouble for it too. We almost lost a pick.
Yeah.
Because of what he was doing. And so I get that. Ben loves the game this much that he wants to question people and find out their focus and blah, blah, blah. And he was telling Tom all that stuff. which is probably why I flipped out too, because I thought they were talking so much that they had worked out that he was going to select him first behind our backs.
Yeah.
So that was kind of part of why I was upset about that, because I know that he was calling players and talking to Tom the whole time. He was calling me a lot to try, and I was just ignoring the calls because I'm like, I'm not picking anybody, so I'm not, concerned about it. I'm only focused on winning. That's all I care about is winning.
Keeping that belt.
Yeah, exactly. Everything else is, it'll work itself out the way it works itself out. And I trust Tom as a manager of champions. And if Ben's handling the more kind of alpha calling people, it's been great. Let Ben do all the work. He's a young man. He's got a lot of energy. Let him do it. Got no problem with that. But yeah, your name had been bandied about quite a few times. And I think when we did the kind of like breakdown of a preview of the draft before the draft happened, I think your name had come up quite a few times in terms of like, this could be a interesting pick. This could be a good pick. This could yield results because he came so close twice to winning those matches. Maybe all he needs is just a little bit more experience, a little bit more knowledge in terms of how to play the game that could get him over the hump. So yeah, you were someone that people had talked about quite a lot on the Finstock exchange side of things.
Yeah,
so when we got, I wasn't surprised.
Yeah, and when hearing that, I was like, yes, that's exactly what I need, because I can obviously, like, the studying isn't a question. Like, we've already said that we're already hard at work trying to get as many questions into my head as possible. It's just that little extra game knowledge that I need, because all of my matches have been stupid little mistakes that didn't cost me the match, but it really didn't help bring me over to get me to that shot. But like I've said it to Ben, I said it to Agnino even before Ben contacted me, and I was like, if you get me to your faction, I'll get you that belt. I've stumbled twice already, but my stumbles are so close that little extra bit is what I need. So
everybody stumbled at some point.
Yeah.
So
Oh sure.
Okay.
Over small things, yeah.
Yes.
Like Calvin Klein or Bespin. Or Jane. Those little things you stumble in the game that you got to figure out as you go along.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, where do you see this going? How far do you see the Finstock exchange going this season? If we have the same roster as we started off in the season, do you see this team going all the way?
I think there's a real possibility that we, at some point during the year, we have every single one of the belts. I think there's absolutely the possibility that Dan and I stay tag team champions, and either Dan or Ben is the singles champion. You're the Star Wars champion, and even Dan could be triple belted and win the G title as well.
If anybody, if anybody can be triple belted, my first pick is Dan Murrell.
And if anybody deserves to be triple belted, my first pick is Dan Murrell.
Yeah. Obviously, Rachel's in that conversation, and Kalinowski. Even you are in that conversation as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe down the road.
Yeah. But those are the three that I would say have the strongest argument for doing that. But Dan is like, how do you bet against Dan Murrell?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I said this on the podcast before that like this team has like probably the biggest potential because we have a great mixture of like great known characters and players and some unknown players and players that have
diamonds in the rough. Yeah,
diamonds in the rough and people that have just barely gotten there. And like we have such a great mixture of players, and we have the possibility of like 3 teams on one team, 4 teams on one team. We have players that are willing to go into different divisions. So like the potential for points is ridiculous with the Finstock Exchange, and I think on paper we are the best out of all the factions. Yeah,
I don't disagree with you. I think that's absolutely true, and other people can pump up their factions all they want. I think on paper we have the most potential. We have the soundest picks of the draft. Of course, BC is the one X factor that I don't know what we've got in BC, but everybody else, I'm pretty confident in that we'll do a great job for us and with us. And so I agree with you. I think that's to me. Everyone's always like, "Oh, they have a better." No, the Finstock Exchange is set. Yeah. It's set.
Yeah,
and we are. It's funny, we're even hungrier than we were before. I think that's crazy that we're even like, I'm hungrier. Like, I'm watching Liverpool, right? This is my team for years, for decades. This is a football team, Premier League, English Premier League. When they play, they're even hungrier. They're killing everybody, right? They're on a 40-game no-loss streak, which is incredible across all competitions. And that's phenomenal. And every time they play, they're even hungrier than the time before. When they could sit back and relax, they're even hungrier than the time before. The worst thing that they did, Christian did, was to give me a month to prep for this match. Because now I'm like even more going to be ready for this match. I thought I was playing February 1st. The fact I'm playing February 15th gives me even more time to get laser focused and play. And I'm hungry. I'm hungry again. That's great because I'm scared. And scared and nervous makes me excited to play the game.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
That's awesome.
And I love that I'm confident too. So there's like all of that in the mix that I'm looking forward to doing and getting back out there again. And I'm actually glad I'm not in New York. I mean, there were some conversations about me possibly being there as part of the triple threat initially. But it's good that I'm not because I didn't, as much as I would love to be in Brooklyn playing, I think it's good to have a little bit of a rest after everything.
Absolutely.
So, let Danny carry the banner a little bit.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna go ahead and just wrap it up here. We've gone for a while, but thank you again for coming on. I've said it several times on this podcast. You are my favorite player in all of the Schmoedown. Just the passion you bring to the game,
Unmatched,
it's
absolutely.
Unrivaled out of any competitor that I've ever seen. That's why I love the Outlaw. Heel or not, heel, face, anti-face, whatever you want to call the Outlaw. The day you step away from the Schmoedown will be a very sad day for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So
I don't even want to think about it. Let's not even talk about it. Let's just move on.
focus on this season, how we're going to just demolish everybody. But as we wrap it up, I just want to let everybody know where they can find you online as far as social and everything goes.
Yeah. You can always find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. And that's been building so much. And I appreciate everybody's come aboard over the last few weeks. And you can find me at my YouTube page, which I am really focused on building up and confronting a lot of my own nerves about shooting these videos, editing these videos, and putting up more content there on the YouTube channel. You can find that at www.youtube.com/John Rocha Says. John Rocha Says, not The Rocha Says, because they didn't give me that. But it's the Outlaw Nation channel. And so you can go there, and I'm building playlists more and more, so there'll be more content there. And if you want to listen to my podcasts, I've got the Top 10, which is out there. The Cinephiles, that's CINE-FILES. There's the Deep Cut is back. It's called John Rocha's Deep Cut, and go listen to that as well on podcasts. And there'll be a wrestling show coming real soon, and sports show, and then possibly a tech show. So there's more stuff coming down the pike from me, because now that I have more time to do it, I want to do it, build out my thing that is the Outlaw Nation. So come aboard. Come aboard.
I'll always be hustling. So Nicki, where can they find you online?
Oh, well, I say things on the internet at Twitter at Dimmy, DIMMMYYY.
As for me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Drew Dimalanta, DIMALANTA, on YouTube at videosbyandrew.com. You can find this podcast on that channel. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please give me a like, share, and hit the subscribe button. We just recently hit 1,000 subscribers. Whoop. Great milestone for the channel. Yeah, thank you. And do me a favor as well, if you're listening to this on an audio form, go to Apple Podcasts and give us a rate, subscribe to the feed as well, because we were ranked 65th last time I checked after shows in the United States. So
pretty big deal.
Be great to get us in the top 50 and maybe in the top 10. And also we have a Patreon now. So if you want to help out the show, help out the channel, we have a lot of great plans coming down to the future of the channel and the podcast. We a couple of things coming down the line. So if you want to help out the channel and the podcast at all, please become a member of the Squadron. So head over to patreon.com/Andrew and Nicki to become a member of the Squadron today. So as we close that out again on this episode of Beyond the Schmoedown, John Rocha, thank you so much for joining us in this episode, and we will see everybody next time.
Take care. Thank you.